Did the United States secretly order Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. to prepare for war? This question now grips Manila. Tension is rising as the U.S.-Philippine alliance grows stronger, while China's threat looms larger every day. The conversation has shifted from defense to the possibility of launching offensive strikes against China from Philippine soil. Imagine American missiles launched from Luzon, targeting China. Not a movie fantasy, but a scenario military planners are considering. Signs are everywhere. Secret meetings, advanced weapons arriving, and a deepening alliance. Is the Philippines being positioned as a launch pad in a superpower conflict? Is Marcos being forced to choose between a powerful ally and a dangerous neighbor? The decisions made now could change Southeast Asia's future for generations. The world is watching Manila, every move, every word, analyzed for hidden meaning. Is Marcos leading his country to greater security or into a trap set by giants? One thing is certain, the Philippines is now at the center of a dangerous new game. Understanding the rules of this game is crucial before it's too late. The stakes have never been higher for the Filipino people. Allies and enemies alike are watching as the nation holds its breath. The path ahead is filled with danger and uncertainty. The Philippines stands at a crossroads, and the next move could decide its fate. The Mutual Defense Treaty, signed in 1951, is more than a promise of protection. Hidden within is a clause about a collective response. If either country is attacked in the Pacific, both can act together, not just to defend, but to strike back. In today's South China Sea tensions, this clause is more relevant than ever. A single attack could trigger a U.S. counterstrike, with the Philippines expected to join. The MDT is not just a promise of help, it's a commitment to fight together. This is the hidden blade of the treaty, powerful but dangerous. The stakes are higher than ever. The world is watching. In March 2025, U.S. Secretary of Defense Peter Brian Hegseth visited Manila for high-level talks with President Marcos and Defense Secretary Teodoro. This was no routine visit. It signaled a new urgency in the U.S.-Philippine alliance. Hegseth spoke of an ironclad commitment, making it clear the U.S. expects the Philippines to be ready for action. This visit was part of a broader U.S. effort to coordinate allies across the Indo-Pacific. Behind closed doors, leaders discussed logistics, weapons, and intelligence sharing, turning promises into concrete military plans. In 2024, new intelligence sharing practices began, and now cooperation is reaching new heights. The alliance is shifting from defense to readiness for offensive action. The public sees handshakes, but the real story is in the details, preparing for a fight. The Philippines is now a key piece in America's Indo-Pacific strategy. These meetings are about more than diplomacy, they are about war planning. The whispers of deeper military integration are growing louder. The alliance is moving toward a state of readiness for conflict. The Philippines is being prepared to play a central role if war breaks out. This is the new reality of the U.S.-Philippine relationship. The stakes are higher than ever before. The world is watching as the alliance transforms. Actions reveal the real plan. U.S.-Philippine military exercises have evolved from defense to practicing long-range strikes. In March 2025, a massive exercise focused on deploying forces over great distances, training for power projection, not just defense. The arrival of the U.S. Typhoon missile system in 2024 marked a turning point. Typhoon launchers can fire missiles thousands of kilometers. These are offensive, not defensive weapons. The US is moving these launchers around Luzon, seeking strategic positions for potential strikes into the South China Sea. Under the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, U.S. access to Philippine bases is expanding. These bases are being upgraded with millions in U.S. investment, improving runways, storage, and living quarters. In 2025, $336 million in U.S. military aid is modernizing Philippine forces, making bases more useful for American operations. Experts believe these sites are being prepared as launch pads for U.S. counterstrikes. Joint drills, new weapons, and upgraded bases all point to one thing: preparation for offensive operations. The Philippines is being positioned as a forward base for U.S. strikes against China. This is a major strategic shift. The country is now on the front line of any potential conflict. The evidence is clear. The US is preparing the Philippines for more than just defense. The risks for the nation have never been greater. The next move could change everything. China isn't standing by quietly. It's pushing back hard against the US-Philippine alliance. Beijing sees the growing partnership as a direct threat, responding with cyber attacks, maritime confrontations, and propaganda. In January 2025, Chinese hackers targeted the Philippine presidential office, seeking military secrets. On the seas, clashes at Scarborough Shoal are becoming more frequent and dangerous. China's Coast Guard uses water cannons and ramming tactics to block Philippine vessels. Deliberate acts of intimidation. Each incident raises the risk of a deadly miscalculation. China is also ramping up surveillance of US-Philippine bases and movements. State media demands the removal of US missile systems, painting the Philippines as a US pawn. Beijing warns of serious consequences for Manila's actions. The dragon is furious, and a furious dragon is dangerous. The cycle of escalation is making the South China Sea more volatile than ever. The Philippines is now in the crosshairs of a superpower rivalry. The risk of conflict is growing by the day. President Marcos faces a perilous choice: side with the US for security, or risk China's wrath. The US offers military aid and protection, but joining its fight could make Philippine cities targets for Chinese missiles. The threat of destruction and loss of life is real. This could be the most dangerous moment since World War II. China is both a threat and a vital economic partner, funding billions in Philippine projects. Beijing warns that closer US ties could mean cancelled investments and economic pain. Losing China's trade and tourism would hurt ordinary Filipinos. Marcos must weigh national survival against alliance commitments. Recent moves, cancelling Chinese-funded projects, calling out China's South China Sea claims, show defiance, but at a cost. Every step toward the US brings the Philippines closer to conflict. The dilemma is stark: security or survival, alliance or autonomy. The stakes are not just diplomatic, they're existential. The nation's future hangs in the balance. Marcos's choice will define the Philippines for a generation. The world is watching his every move. The next decision could change everything. Imagine the unthinkable, a US-China war with the Philippines as a launchpad for American strikes. The moment US missiles are fired from Philippine soil, the country becomes an active participant and a target. China would almost certainly retaliate, targeting EDCA bases, military headquarters, ports and airfields. The goal cripple the Philippines' ability to support the US war effort. The danger wouldn't stop at military sites. Critical infrastructure could be destroyed. Power plants, communication networks, ports and airports could be bombed, paralyzing the nation. Modern warfare brings destruction home to the cities. Manila, Cebu, Davao, millions of civilians would be at risk. Decades of progress could be wiped out in days. This is the nightmare scenario for President Marcos and the Filipino people. The price of alliance could be national devastation. Is standing up to China worth risking your own home? This is the gravest question facing the nation. The consequences of war would be catastrophic. The choice could define the Philippines for generations. The Philippines stands on the edge, caught between two giants. President Marcos's decision will shape the nation's future, but every Filipino has a stake. The central question: if China attacks and the US launches a counterstrike, should the Philippines support it? Supporting the US would show defiance and honor the alliance, but it would invite devastating Chinese retaliation. Is it better to endure harassment or risk total war? Some say diplomacy is always better than fighting. Others argue for standing up for sovereignty at any cost. There are no easy answers, only hard choices. What matters more, defiance or survival, honor or safety? This is a national conversation that must happen now. What would you do? Share your thoughts below. Your voice matters. The Philippines stands at a pivotal moment. Old certainties gone, new dangers rising. The US is preparing the country for more than defense. Offensive counterstrikes are now on the table. President Marcos walks a tightrope between Washington's pressure and Beijing's threats. His decisions will determine whether the Philippines finds peace or becomes a battlefield. This is not just a question for politicians, but for every citizen. The nation must reflect: are we ready for the consequences of this alliance? The future is too important for silence or complacency. We must confront these hard truths and make a conscious choice. The world is changing, and so must we, but with eyes wide open. The time for serious thought and national conversation is now. The next move will define a generation.